Welcome to Sacred Rebellion. I'm Kim Andryc.
And I'm Lora Solomon. In this podcast, we defy convention and shatter the stereotypes of what it means to be healthy and holy.
It's time to rebel.
Let's do this. Coming up on this episode, Kim, I'm so excited about our guest today.
A woman. I'm just always happy to have a woman. And we've been talking to men a little bit lately. So
yeah. So we have Emmi, who is an intuitive healer, energy medicine practitioner, and a shamanic womb priestess. I love that, shamanic womb priestess, and teacher dedicated to reawakening ancient feminine wisdom.
She works with women one-on-one and in groups, both face-to-face, online, and in retreat settings, with the intention of raising the frequency of our planet and fostering healing one womb at a time.
I know my womb can probably need some additional healing. So she's trained in various healing modalities, and she creates sacred, safe, and non-judgmental spaces for deep healing and transformation, and facilitates the emergence of authentic connection, profound knowing, and inner power for women of all ages around the world. And she is the founder of Feminine Revered.
Yeah, she's also a host of a podcast, the Sacred Feminine Power Podcast, and bestselling author. She runs the House of Gaia, a suburban sanctuary and center for healing and transformation in Lusaka, Zambia. And she has an MA in human rights, and is dedicated to women's and children's rights, and is an advocate for health freedom.
Amen. Health freedom.
Yes.
So one of the things that, or one of the ways that Emmi does her work is she focuses on the 5 core feminine wounds: the mother wound, the sister wound, the body wound, the menstruation wound, and the womb wound. So womb awakening in general, and why it's so important for all of us to awaken to the power of our wombs, working with our wombs to create the new earth. So let's just jump in and talk about all this good stuff.
Such good stuff.
Welcome, Emmi.
Welcome to the rebellion.
Thank you so much. It's such a blessing to be here with both of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let me I have so many questions for you. But one of the things that I can really relate to in your work is, and I've experienced this year in a big way, and Kim has been part of it, is healing the sister wound. And I didn't have, I knew I had a sister. I know this is a bigger topic than just my personal sister, but I knew I had a sister. I knew that relationship was very troubled, and I knew that I had difficulty in my friendships with other women, and it really came out this past year. As our healing does, things get activated, things get triggered, and we have an opportunity to heal that. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say about the sister wound to start.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I'll start with an experience that I went through myself. This happened a few years ago, and I became very good friends with a woman with whom we shared the same vision around bringing healing and transformation into the world, and really wanted to collaborate in different ways to fulfill this vision in a collaborative way. And because we both led very busy lives, we didn't meet that often. And then one day she invited me over for lunch, and we were chatting away, having a really great time, eating this delicious food. And then suddenly she mentioned that she was going to be running a retreat in the next couple of weeks and doing it on her own. And it felt like a stab in the back, like this massive betrayal, because I had imagined that we would be collaborating, and I took our conversations from before very seriously. It's like, for me, we had an agreement that we were going to be collaborating, and she hadn't even mentioned this idea of the retreat to me or asked me if I'd like to participate. And in that moment, it literally felt like this massive hole opened up underneath me, and I went completely numb. And I honestly don't know how I got through that lunch, because all I wanted to do was crawl away and hide in a dark room and just cry. It hit me that hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I got home, somehow I got home, and I kept on mulling over this over and over again. And it kept haunting me for days. And I used all the tools in my tool bag to try and release this feeling of betrayal. I even had sessions with my mentors and with my colleagues to really try and loosen up this feeling of having been stabbed in the back. And it wouldn't budge. And I was thinking, there must be something going on here. Usually I'm able to release this kind of stuff really quite quickly, and it doesn't stay with me like this. But this stayed with me for weeks on end. And then synchronistically, I started to come across books and writings and articles that started to talk about what essentially is the sister wound. So the fact that us women, we tend to put each other down rather than uplift each other, that we tend to judge and criticize and compete and compare at a really unhealthy level. And the more I started reading about it, the more I started to realize that this really is the result of centuries of oppression and silencing of women overall. And one really good example of where these kinds of patterns and dynamics are stemming from would be the witch hunts, the burning times, which in the Middle Ages literally led to women, and we're talking about mothers and daughters and sisters and best friends, having to denounce each other, having to betray each other in order to survive. And essentially, you were trying to save your own life by calling somebody else a witch. And this, of course, would have led to some really, really deep wounding around betrayal, around sisterhood, around what it means to be a woman in our world. And the important thing here is that trauma like that doesn't just go away. It remains in our cellular memory, it remains in our DNA, and it gets passed on from generation to generation unless we actually stop and start to heal it. So for me, the sister wound is something that goes way back, something that we've often taken on from either past lives or other lifetimes, or from something that happened in our lineages. So from our mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, and way beyond that, or something that stayed in our cellular memory just from the collective experiences of women all around the world for the past hundreds of years. And the burning times is one very potent example of something that has stayed with us, remained inside our bodies. And it manifests itself in the present times as this constant need to compete, criticize, and compare, and push each other down. So that essentially is the sister wound that I work with my clients.
Yeah, I can
So
totally
much
relate.
there.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that healing process, because I don't think that there's a woman alive who can't relate. I mean, just walk into any middle school.
Yeah.
Right? Just walk into any middle school and you see it playing out in such really insensitive ways. So talk about that process of healing for you.
Well, for me, it was really getting to the root cause. Where did this wound come from originally? Because I knew it wasn't that lunch alone.
Yeah.
There was a lot of baggage that came before that. So I really started to explore my own journey, both in this lifetime. I started looking at my early childhood experiences, relationships with female friends, with girlfriends, with friends I had as an adult, working relationships with women, and really starting to unravel what are the dynamics around here? What is it that is driving our relationship? And what is it that is causing the kind of behavioral patterns that we seem to be locked in? Not me alone, but all of these other people as well. And then, of course, exploring it through my lineage. So really trying to understand from my mother's side as well, what was her relationship with her sisters, her biological sisters, with her female friends. And then trying to intuitively understand even beyond that, looking at my grandmother's life, trying to understand what my great grandmother's life could have been like, and so on. And then also exploring past lives and looking at those instances where I, as a woman, might have been the victim of persecution, perhaps torture, perhaps murder, where I might, as a woman, have been the perpetrator, the one who betrayed, for example, or where I might have been a man in a previous lifetime and where I was the cause of a traumatic experience. And once you start to heal at that level, it really has a massive impact on you at the cellular level, because you're literally transforming your DNA as you do this kind of work. And the more you unravel, the more you heal at that root cause level, the more expansion you start to bring into your own life as well. And then you can start to shine your light from a very different perspective, from a very different angle, with a deeper understanding of what's been going on for you and what's been going on for the collective for such a long time.
I love what you're saying here. A few things I want to add in. One of the things I realized for myself is that if I didn't heal this, I was not going to be able to be the best version of myself, because I had been protecting myself from betrayal by just being a lone wolf.
Sure.
And it worked. It did create some protection, but I also was cutting myself off from collaboration.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, okay, I don't really like this truth, but I need women collaborating with me in order to be my best self and to do my work. I need that. And one other thing I want to say is what I experienced during this was rage like I had never experienced rage, in like a white hot burning rage. And I knew was much deeper than the current event. I knew it was old. It didn't have all the narrative around what it was, but I could think back into my own life, my own experiences, and really was grief, right? It was grief, because I, like, even in this lifetime, lost my sister. She died traumatically. And so it was, in a way, unprocessed grief from that. So there's just so much there. And for me, like, the hardest thing was letting myself feel that much rage. And I would just wake up angry and go to bed angry. And it was like, I just was like, okay, I'm going to be as angry as I need to be for as long as I need to be. And I'm going to trust it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to be angry.
And that's another such an important point to make, because we are so often taught not to show anger and not to even feel anger. We're told to suppress it. We're told to brush it away, be those good girls who are always smiling and behaving and in their best behavior. Whereas anger, at its deepest level, is a really beautiful, transformational, transmuting energy that really allows us to move stuff through our bodies when we allow it. Of course, there is a danger if you hold on to it for a long time. It starts to kind of fester inside your body, and it can manifest itself as illness or disease or different kinds of emotional challenges. But as an emotion, anger is so powerful and so beautiful, because it really allows us to understand when we have been wronged, when something unjust has been done to us or to someone else. And it can really be that launching pad for action, like that sacred action, that sacred rebellion that we all need to be engaging in for our world to really change and transform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also talk about the womb awakening. So talk a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, well, this is all interconnected. All the wounds that I work with are interconnected and interlocked in many, many ways. But womb awakening is really about us remembering and reclaiming the power of our wombs. You see, in the ancient times, so we're now going way, way back in time, they knew that our wombs are sacred. And they revered women as the physical carriers of wombs because they knew that through our womb spaces, not only are we able to create new life, which in itself is a miracle, and we often forget that. But through our womb spaces, we are also connected to the womb of Mother Earth, the womb of Gaia, that brings nurturance to all of us who are dwelling on this planet, but also to what we call the great primordial womb, the great black hole from which everything has been birthed. So we're talking about really a womb cosmology that was the foundation of beliefs and life philosophies in the ancient times for so many cultures and societies, if not all, on our planet. And in these societies, women were truly revered for their wombs, for their menstrual cycles. The fact that our menstrual blood is healing was recognized back then. And we were held in a very special place because of this life-giving, life-birthing, life-nurturing role that we had. And women were actually the first shamans. Women were the visionaries, the seers, and also known as warriors and leaders. And then you start to wonder, well, what happened? Because we certainly are not in that kind of a situation at the moment. And I call that the dawn of patriarchy. So over time, the power of women started to be feared. And of course, there were women who were part of this as well, but generally it was men who feared the power of women and started to put in place very systematic measures that led to the silencing and oppression of women. And this happened in different parts of the world and continued.
It's happened at different parts of the world all at once, yeah?
Well, that is my understanding, that it was really starting to happen in different parts of the world pretty much around the same time. This major transition into a more patriarchal society where men became the ones who were at the top of the hierarchy, so to speak, and where women were seen as inferior, as almost like second-class citizens. And that is the situation we find ourselves even in 2022. Of course, in different levels, depending on where you are. But if you look at certain parts of the world, the situation of women is a lot more difficult, a lot more challenging than it is, for example, in Finland or Sweden or even in the United States. But nevertheless, no matter where we are in the world, women are still seen as lesser beings than men are. And you can see that, for example, in the fact that women are still, in 2022, paid less for the equivalent jobs in the same company, for example, even if the qualifications and the work experience are the same. So men will always be paid more.
I actually just read an article the other day that talked about new graduates, like young people graduating from college and coming into the workplace, that there is a disparity between what they're getting paid. And at that point, there is no experience. And I know in my work, I work in a field where it's a male dominated field, and I've been working in this field for 30 years. And what I observe also, and I think that this comes from the wound, is some of that is self-inflicted. In other words, one of the things that I talk to women about is when there's a job offering, a job description, and it's something that I, as a woman, am interested in, and there are qualifications listed. Let's say there are 10 qualifications and I meet 7 of them, then I will view myself as unqualified and I won't apply. And yet a man who's maybe not carrying around these wounds, they may like this job and have 4 of the qualifications and they'll apply.
That's right.
And so some of it is, it's just residual impact of those wounds, right?
And the very systematic conditioning that we are all born into
Yeah.
in the patriarchal society that we live in still at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ingrained in our brains that women have certain roles and responsibilities, men have certain roles and responsibilities, and there's a certain difference in terms of our status quo, whether that's true or not. But that is the condition in the programming that we are instilled with from the moment we're born, essentially.
Yeah, this goes very, very deep as far as like thinking about why this happened, when it happened. All that being said, this being enslaved or not being free, like in some parts of the world, it's very obvious that a woman is living in that. I was in Egypt this year, and it's Islamic culture, and just by the way a woman dresses and is in part of society, and kind of it's obvious, right? They don't have, it's very, physically you can see it. They don't have the same freedoms. But then you think about women, like you're saying, in the United States or in Finland or in Sweden, we think we're free. We can wear what we want. We can drive a car. We can
have a credit card.
Have it. But how many women have hormonal problems and eating disorders and anxiety and depression? So it is this like internalized patriarchy. You could strip away all the rules, and it's an internalized conditioning from lifetimes of not trusting your body, not feeling safe in your body, not trusting your not feeling safe being powerful. When we experience that, if you show up as powerful, then you're going to be killed. Essentially, like if that's in our DNA, if that's somewhere in our memory, right, then you might get that job even with equal pay at some big place. But when you walk in, you're still walking into that with that body that has that memory. Don't be powerful, or it's risky.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why so many of us women have difficulty speaking our truths and expressing ourselves authentically. We have a lot of throat chakra issues and self-worth issues, and we doubt ourselves a lot more than men do. And essentially what womb awakening does is reverse that. So it's all about taking back our power and doing it in a womb-centered way by remembering that our wombs are incredibly powerful. And when we learn to connect with our womb spaces, when we learn to listen to the messages from our wombs, and when we learn to work with our wombs as these beautiful cauldrons of inner alchemy that we can use to bring creative intentions into our lives, that we can use to manifest different things into our lives, and that we can really work with to change our energy and change the vibration around us as well. That's when we're truly standing in our power. And when we stand in that grounded, rooted power, the power of our bodies, the power of our wombs, we approach our work, we approach our businesses, we approach our relationships, we approach ourselves very, very differently.
So I love that. And that's those are inspiring words. And I'm also thinking about, the menstruation womb, the womb wound. And I'm also thinking about those of us who no longer menstruate, those of us who have entered menopause. And, my mind in my head, I'm like, it's too late for me. So talk a little bit about
healing the menstruation wound in menopause.
Yeah. And the womb wound, right? Like
absolutely.
my womb isn't doing a lot right anymore.
Well, she might be doing a lot more than you give it credit for, to be honest.
Good.
Because even if we've had a hysterectomy and we no longer have a physical organ inside our bodies, the energy and the vibration of our wombs will always be with us. And we can learn to connect with that energy, and we can learn to work with that energy as well. It's the same with our menstrual cycle. Even if we no longer physically bleed, we are still connected to our cycles. Cycles will continue happening inside our body, and these cycles will always be connected to the cycles of the moon and the cycles of nature. And again, we can learn to work with these cycles in a way that allows us to be more energetic in the way we approach life, more energetic in the way we lead our days, more energetic in the way we work as well. And the more we get to know our own cycles and our own rhythms, the more in flow we can also be in terms of everything we want to put out into the world. And with the menstruation wound, one really, really powerful thing to do is to work with our own experiences of menarche. And menarche is the very first time when we get our bleeds as a teenager, as a young girl. And for many of us, that experience was either embarrassing or traumatic.
I was going to say mine was traumatic. I had a traumatic experience.
There we go.
I'll tell you. So I was at sleepaway camp when it happened. And I remember it was this weird, it was a church camp. So we were all in church, and the adults would come in the evening and we would have church. It was kind of a weird thing, but that's where I started my period. And I remember my aunt came and she pulled me aside and she said, "I heard you had a little accident." And I was like, I didn't poop my my period. Like, it wasn't even then at 11 years old, I was like, it wasn't a fucking accident. Like there was something inside of me that was like,
let's choose our words better.
I was excited. I was happy, it was like, that's what was really, I was excited. I was a little shocked, and I was like not at home, and then I had to ask a friend for something. So there was part of me, but anyway, it was like, but just the language around, I heard you had a little, like in the secret, like pulled me aside, like it was embarrassing, shameful, and an accident.
Something that needs to be hidden.
Yes.
Rather than something that is actually to be celebrated.
We don't even use words for it, right? We're like, are you having your little friend?
That's right.
But I tried, I'll say with my daughters, I tried. I was all about the red tent. I wanted to have a celebration. They didn't want anything to do with it. That's just weird mom being weird. Like, shut it down, mom.
Same thing happened with my daughter as well. I was so excited. I was like getting ready, preparing all kinds of things for her already. And she didn't even tell me for the first couple of days that she had started bleeding. And I was like, oh my gosh, that really hit me. But then, she has to experience it the way that feels comfortable and aligned for her. And being there for her when she was ready to talk to me about it was the most important thing for me at that point. But of course, it would have been amazing to have been able to take her through a beautiful ritual and really celebrate the first blood and turn it into
I was ready and excited. No, she didn't want anything. Neither of them wanted anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Maybe my granddaughters someday.
Exactly.
You're probably gonna have grandsons. Just saying.
All right. Speaking of sons, speaking of men, briefly, because it's easy to be angry at men about this. Well, maybe I should just speak for myself. It's been easy for me, but what I've observed is that, men are being born through these wounded wombs.
Yeah.
So they are just as wounded, even almost more so, because they don't have that womb intelligence, but they've got the womb wound because they traveled through that place.
Well, and not only that, they come into this programming where it is not okay to acknowledge their own feminine energy, where, that softness that I think that we all as humans long for. It's like, it's not embraced. You're a sissy if you have any kind of softness and feelings. And yeah, they're, I believe, just as wounded, just as impacted by what we've done.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, patriarchy really is all about the wounded masculine and the immature masculine running the world in the way that it feels best, in a way that really has thrown the balance between the masculine and the feminine completely to the side. And womb awakening as a concept really also embraces the healing of the masculine and seeing a return of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, the mature masculine and the mature feminine really coming into balance. And when these two energies are in balance, you no
Watch
longer
out.
have, yeah, well, indeed, you no longer have that power dynamic, that really unhealthy power dynamic that thrives on pushing down one or the other and needing to bring in punishment or needing to bring in all kinds of nasty energies for us to move forward. It really is about unity and collaboration and thriving for balance and harmony in everything that we do within ourselves and around us as well.
When you were saying that immature masculine, I got this vision of, what used to happen in monarchies. The king would die and leave, the 9-year-old son who is now the king, and how a 9-year-old would rule,
Absolutely. A 9-year-old who's grieving his father, not allowed to show this in public, and still needs to be playing on the sandpit instead of ruling the kingdom. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's really,
Right. Did we talk about all the wounds? There's the
No, we didn't
the
talk
mother
about
wound.
the mother wound. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, the mother wound, I look at it from a couple of different angles. One angle is that it's the relationship with our own mothers and the kind of trauma that we might have experienced because of that relationship. Even in the best mother-daughter relationships, there's likely to be some aspects of if it's not jealousy, then some sort of comparison that can leave some marks in us. And of course, the more rocky that relationship is, the more absent or abusive a mother is, the more traumatic it is for the daughter. And it really is about healing that mother-daughter relationship in those cases. It also relates to our own motherhood experiences, whether we've chosen to be mothers or not, because there's also a lot of judgment and stigma around not becoming a mother in our society still, especially if you choose not to become a mother. But if you have become a mother and you have a challenging experience with your children, or a challenging relationship with your children, for example, that also gets judged immensely. It's also about, in case you've lost a child, whether that's through miscarriage or abortion or the early loss of a child, and the kind of wounds and trauma that leaves inside your body. And if you want to be a mother but cannot become a mother biologically for whatever reason. So it really looks at all those different aspects of the mother wound and starts to unravel that for each unique individual at the level that they are ready to go into with that wound.
And I was also thinking about our relationship with Gaia, our mother planet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's an element that's really started to become more and more succinct in this mother wound concept for me over the past couple of years, especially. So it really is also about our relationship with our mother. Mother Earth.
Our collective mother. Yeah.
Or the great mother, our collective mother.
Also, I don't think we touched on the body wound. I mean, I have a sense of it, but I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Sure. Again, a couple of different aspects to this one as well. Essentially, it's about our relationship to our own bodies. So how do we view our own bodies? How do we talk to our bodies? How do we value our bodies? My talk with my self-talk with my body for the longest time was hugely negative. I was never happy with my body. I developed anorexia around the age of 12 and always had this really difficult relationship with the way my body was changing shape, and always trying to through crazy exercise regime and crazy diets to mold my body into something that it never could become. And really just over the years learning to accept myself and my body exactly the way she is. But we are collectively being bombarded with this crazy images of what we should look like, how we should be, this very narrow concept of beauty and attractiveness that we're all meant to strive towards, and the amount of money and energy we spend on cosmetics, on makeup, on cosmetic surgery, on diets and fashion, absolutely, just to look something different from what we truly are. And that's one aspect of it. And in the worst case scenario, it leads to really complex eating disorders and even suicide in some cases. But then we've also got this notion that we've been conditioned to think that our bodies don't know what they're doing. We've been conditioned to think that our bodies don't know how to heal ourselves from almost pretty much anything.
Pretty much anything.
Pretty much anything, yeah. And if we look at the most natural of processes, pregnancy and childbirth, they've been over-medicalized and they are overly observed from the very, very beginning. And I am not trying to say that medical intervention isn't ever necessary. Of course it is. Sometimes it is absolutely life-saving, and I'm grateful for that. However, overall, we've been taught to think that our bodies don't know what they're doing, and we've been taught to believe that we need to rely on external pills and injections and substances of all kinds for our bodies to thrive, when in reality our bodies are incredibly intelligent organisms that have been living with viruses and bacteria and all kinds of external attacks all along. And we've developed very, very intelligent mechanisms to combat those. And in fact, to become stronger with every virus that enters our body.
Yeah. I mean, literally, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Absolutely.
It's true.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the viruses are actually redefining our bodies.
Yes.
Every single time we get sick, every time we get a fever, for example, that's our bodies doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
And getting us to the next level in many ways in terms of our evolution as well.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody yesterday just about, and everybody's seen something like this, but the video was a photo. There was a video and it was a photograph of a model. And then we watched as the editor adjusted the picture, lengthened her neck, popped up her cheekbones just a little, widened her cheeks, removed errant hairs. I mean, and then they put the photographs next to each other and they look like two completely different people. And so and I was talking to a man about, how impactful it is to be shown this unnatural image. It's unnatural, and be told that this is the standard. This is the standard for beauty. And nobody can measure up. Nobody can. Nobody can. Like, even this model, was completely distorted by the end of it all. And how harmful that is.
And what does that do to someone's psyche?
Right. Because that's the images were shown over and over and over again.
And even that model, right, who's dedicated her life to some standard of beauty, even she's not good enough. Her image has to be artificially manipulated to be good enough.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. That's the patriarchal conditioning.
And think about,
not being good enough.
Right. And think about, we start with little girls with Barbies. They're so anatomically not correct. That's the image.
I remember I took my daughter when she was about, 10, to one of these, I don't know if they still have them, but it was like you take them in and these women do their hair. They basically make them look like little adults. They put all this makeup on them and do their hair. They were like these glamour parties. And then they would do
Glamour
like this
shots kind of thing.
then they would do this like little runway. They would play this music and they would walk down the runway and they would take all these pictures. I was having a panic attack. Like I was like, oh my God, this is, I can't handle what I'm seeing. And my daughter, my 10-year-old daughter, took me into the dressing room. She said, Mom, it's just a kid's birthday party. Like, relax. It's okay. Cause I was like, why are they trying to make you all look so different and make you look, it was just, I could just feel how bad it was. But yeah, she was like, had to talk me off the ledge because I was like, we have to leave. We're not staying here. I'm not participating in this. She's like, Mom, simmer down.
It's a birthday party.
Relax, Mom.
But I was also I was thinking about this when you were talking about the womb wound and now the body wound. The other thing I'm thinking about is childbirth and how forcefully oftentimes doctors are encouraging cesareans, and just the carelessness that is taken, pulling out the womb, cutting it open, extracting the baby and putting it all back in there. It's just it seems so barbaric and so careless, and just the antithesis of this sacred honoring of the portal of life.
Well, all in the name of safety too. You have to remember that's all been, the argument is to save your life and to save the baby's life. Like that is the rationale, right? I mean, the rationale for any C-section is safety.
Yeah. And of course, sometimes it will be the safest thing to do if a life is in danger. We need to remember that as well.
Yeah.
But again, I would argue that a large majority of cesarean sections could actually have been a really beautiful natural birthing experience that would have been very empowering for the mother and for the baby as well. Because we know now scientifically that if a baby is born through a cesarean, they don't get all the benefits of the natural birth process that would prepare them for life in a very, very different way. And just think about how quickly the umbilical cord is also cut off from the baby. Whilst the baby's blood is still circulating in it, and the mother's key nutrients are still inside the umbilical cord as well. So if only more of us really, if I'd known this when I gave birth, would go for lotus births, for natural births, and leave the cord intact for longer periods of time, we would have a very, very different world just from that.
I agree. There's so many things I wish I would have known earlier in life.
Me too.
And this fear that comes up is because my daughters already think that I'm crazy, that when if they decide to become physical mothers and go through that if I make any of these suggestions, that they're going to be like, that's just mom being. So it's like, how many generations is it going to take for this to really heal?
Yeah. I think we need to look for gentle prompting. And really, that I realize it with my teenage daughter as well. The more I try to, get her to read stuff or look at stuff that I'm interested in, the more she will just, walk away from it. And as you say, Laura, I think that mom's gone completely bonkers. But I think that the seed kind of has been planted. And I think over time, as she matures further, she might start to really look into that more deeply as well. And maybe even start to change her mind and opinion around that. So I'm really right now choosing to trust that as long as I plant the seeds and just leave it, release it, allow the seeds to germinate in peace in that dark soil, something will shift for her as well. Especially if she sees some of her friends also starting to change their opinions as they become older.
Yeah, I think that's true.
We can stay hopeful for the next generation, and each generation. I mean, I do believe that as I heal, that that's not just for me, that is for my children
and for the
grandchildren.
community I'm a part of, really. I mean,
And for the collective overall.
if we still believe in the power of the feminine, then as each of us heals, we bring that energy into our community. I think that is true.
Yeah,
for sure.
And also there's the power of growing up, because I feel like, in a way, if we could say the patriarchy has been the wounded, immature masculine, a lot of women have been in the wounded, immature feminine too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
I mean, we have to own that we have been not willing to grow up because it's scary.
Yeah. Or for whatever reason.
And often very, very difficult in the circumstances that we've been brought up in and live in as well. So it's very easy to be in that neediness, that almost like that victim modality that a lot of that immature feminine is really about. And it can be a huge step to come out of that. Hugely scary.
And powerful.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
To just not be a victim at all anymore. Like, I'm just done.
Yeah.
Done.
It's a choice. Well, Emmi, thank you so much. Are you ready for the lightning round?
I hope so.
I think you're ready.
Yeah. First question, what rules have you chosen to rebel against on your journey to health?
Well, I've kind of walked away from the Western big pharma world pretty much completely, and just chosen to embrace the more natural way of approaching the health of my body and the kind of remedies I would take, and really, as part of the training that I've had on the healing modalities that I've learned, it really is about understanding at a deeper level, where is each symptom coming from. So really truly listening to our bodies, to our wombs, around what is actually going on. What does this pain in my knee mean at a deeper level? Where is it coming from? Why is it coming up on my right knee rather than the left knee? What is the message behind that? And how can I heal the root cause of it rather than just addressing the symptom?
Amen.
Amen.
All right, Emmi, what does it mean to you to be holy?
It means to be human, because we are divine, and we've forgotten that. We truly, truly are divine. We are connected to this beautiful, amazing cosmos. We are all energy, we're all vibration. And just by virtue of having been born into these bodies on this beautiful planet of ours, we are holy.
That's beautiful. And what do you want to say to a listener right now to help them rise up?
I truly believe that when women reconnect with the ancient feminine wisdom that we have inside our bodies, inside our womb spaces, and when we have the courage to heal the wounds and the trauma that keep us from loving ourselves exactly the way we are, and when we have the courage to step into our sacred feminine power, our holy feminine power, not only do we heal ourselves, but we heal those who came before us. We heal those who come after us, and we also contribute to the collective healing of our planet and beyond.
That's a beautiful message. One I welcome this morning. So, Emmi, I know that you work with people. Share the kind of work that you, or what you offer, and how people could get in touch with you.
Sure. So essentially, I work predominantly with women, also men, but predominantly with women. And I take women on journeys of healing and transformation where we go deep. So we go often into the shadows and we look for the root causes of the kind of trauma and wounds that are being manifested in our lives. And essentially, I work with the mother wound, the sister wound, the body wound, the menstruation wound, and the womb wound, and really support women to understand, where is this wounding coming from? Is it this lifetime? Is it another lifetime? Is it from our lineages from generations back, or is it something that's inside our DNA because of the collective experiences of women all around the world? And really through that healing work, start to release these cellular memories and start to really open up our lives, our understandings, our perceptions to something completely new around who we truly are, our divinity, and what we can become when we embrace our sacred feminine power and when we have the courage to really speak our truths and start to share our unique soul gifts with the world. And you can find me essentially on my website, which is femininerevered.com. And I also have a Facebook and Instagram page under that same name, Feminine Revered. And I also send out a regular-ish newsletter. So through my website, if you're interested and want to hear more from me, you can sign up to my newsletter as well.
Awesome. And I think that you have some special offer for the listeners of the Sacred Rebellion.
Yes, I have a free gift. So this is essentially a transmission that came through a couple of years ago, and it's a meditative journey that is, it's the words of the wise old crone. So we're talking about ancient energy here, and she's essentially reminding us of our divinity. So the name of this transmission is You Are a Miracle. And it's a meditative journey that will take you into yourself and hopefully allow you to remember who you truly are.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. And Emmi, thank you so much for having this conversation with us and for having the courage to do the work that you're doing and affecting the lives that you're affecting. And I'm just so grateful in this moment.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and appreciate you having me on the show.
Thanks for listening to Sacred Rebellion. We love connecting with you in this way. If you want to join the rebellion and enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Sacred Rebellion.
Give us a rating and review, and please recommend us to your tribe. Follow us on social media at Sacred Rebellion Podcast on Facebook and Instagram.
Until next time, stay curious,
Stay courageous, and most of all, stay rebellious.